news. McCavity's threatening to spoil an auction at Snoopy's.
Wow, Aunt Em, what are the details?
Snoopy's plans to auction a few very valuable ivory items, and just now McCavity delivered a note saying, Caveat emptor.
Caveat emptor? What's that mean?
It's Latin. It means, let the buyer beware. I think McCavity is hinting that one of the items for sale is a fake. If so, it must be a clever one. I rang up Inspector Gage at Scotland Yard. He says they're on the case. I'm going over there. You can come with me if you want, or meet me later at Snoopy's.
Okay, Aunt Miranda. We'll come back here and catch up with Jennifer when we find out what's going on. There's Lady Chiswick. She's here with Count von Coburg. Whenever there's something rare and precious for sale, he always seems to be around.
What a shame! I had my mind set to buy that unicorn horn for Lord Chiswick. He so loves unicorns, you know. Even the Royal Crest of England has a unicorn in it.
And I'd hoped to buy the comb. Most unusual, Nine. Made from a mammoth tusk.
But now I daren't buy a thing. What if it's a forgery, as McCavity says? How dreadful!
When the man handed me the note, I did not read it immediately. I wish I had. I could have captured that immense scoundrel, McCavity. The note said one of our ivory items is a fake. As the chief authenticator for Snoopy's, I must say, I find that extremely unlikely. What you read about each of our ivories is true, I am sure. This note from McCavity is nothing more than a cruel prank.
Where is McCavity's note now?
The lads from Scotland Yard took it.
It sounds like Inspectors Gage and Blodgers disagree about something. It's a dead ringer for the other notes we've gotten from McCavity.
This McCavity is bent on humiliating Scotland Yard. It's time we put a stop to these sinister antics.
We're making too much fuss over this McCavity chap. His pranks are meddlesome, that's all. Best to ignore him, I say.
Hey Jake, have you caught McCavity yet?
No, not yet, but maybe you can help us figure out what to do next. We think McCavity has somehow placed a fake in an auction of 4 rare ivories. I have pictures of them in our notebook. We have to figure out which one is not what it seems to be. There's a little sailing ship that supposedly was carved by prisoners of war in the early 1800s. It's really cool, Jennifer. You should see it. Then there's a king from a chess set supposedly carved from a walrus tusk in the 1200s. It's kind of cool, too. His eyes are all wide and staring. And there's a comb made from a mammoth's tusk.
Hold it right there. Haven't mammoths been extinct for thousands of years? Sounds like that's the fake for sure.
Oh yeah? Well, get this. The last one is the horn of a unicorn.
It sure looks like one, but that's too much. Everyone knows that unicorns never existed.
Now, Jennifer, let's not jump to conclusions. We have to outthink McCavity, remember? Let's decide how to check out all these ivory artifacts. Let's take the chess piece first of all. Didn't we see some cool chess pieces last time we were in the British Museum? Yes, here they are in the guidebook. The Lewis chess pieces.
Great! About the unicorn, if it ever existed, I'm sure the mammals exhibit at the Natural History Museum will tell you.
The unicorn horn has an inscription too. A bunch of dancing unicorns. Even if it was a horn from a different animal, someone could call it a unicorn horn because it's a horn with unicorns on it. The unicorn horn had some writing on it too. A sailor named Josh Payton wrote some mushy stuff to his girlfriend Cheryl. Maybe we can look up their names in the British Museum's library.
Yeah, I think the Natural History Museum has a woolly mammoth display too, over by the big dinosaur. Check that out.
To find out about that excellent little ship, we could go ask questions at the Cutty Sark. There are always a bunch of sailors hanging out there.
And while you're in the British Library, look up ivory. Maybe that will lead you to a clue.
Those are good leads. Thanks, Jennifer. Let's go. You lead the way. Every time I see that dinosaur skeleton, it just boggles my mind. I almost forget what we came here for. Cool. Mammoths. Here's an exhibit on them. Oh, right. All ivory comes from mammals. I think we can find some answers in the mammals exhibit. It always amazes me how many different types of mammals there are, including us humans. And check out that exhibit on mythical beasts. Look, the museum has a special exhibit on mythical creatures, animals that have never been proven to exist at all. That's Philip Min sitting over there with a chessboard. He's on Nigel's chess team. Maybe he can tell us about the Lewis chess pieces. Let's see. What else are we looking up here? Oh yes, ivory. And Josh Payton and his girlfriend Cheryl, who lived over 100 years ago, if they really existed at all.
Oh, yes, the Lewis pieces, of from walrus tusks around 1200 AD or so. They're on display in the museum. It's one of my favorite exhibits. Do you want to know more about them? Come with me.
Cecil Grange is the museum's authenticator. He's a good person to ask about the Lewis chessmen.
Mr. Grange, we have some questions about the Lewis chess pieces.
Were they carved by someone named Lewis?
No. They were found on the Isle of Lewis, one of the Outer Hebrides Islands in Scotland. Quite remarkable, really. About 70 chess pieces, just sitting in a little stone shelter, miles from anywhere.
People think maybe someone salvaged them from a shipwreck and stored them there. Or maybe the shelter was used to store things by Norsemen. We may never know.
Are they the only ones of their kind to exist? Is it possible that other chess pieces like them might show up?
I think other pieces like them have been found. One was discovered in a river in Hamburg, and others turned up in Scandinavia somewhere.
It seems the artist, whoever he or she was, made many such pieces and shipped them all over Europe. I wouldn't be surprised if more pieces like them are found. They're made of walrus ivory, and ivory lasts a long time.
Maybe if we learn a little more about ivory, we can pick out the fake. Which of these books would be most likely to have information about ivory in it? Great! The encyclopedia will have the info we need, under I for ivory. It'll take too much time to look through the old directories by hand. Let's use the electronic database to see if we can find out anything about the sailor and his sweetheart. Here, I'll enter in the key words Josh Payton and see if the computer can find anything. Rats! Nothing! Well, maybe Cheryl married Josh and took his last name. Here, I'll enter Cheryl Payton and we'll see if we find anything. Nope, the database says there wasn't anyone named Cheryl Payton in England until the 1930s.
That's right. That's because Cheryl is a modern name. It's a combination of cherry and beryl. It was first used when beryl became a popular name in England and America in the 1920s and 1930s. Now, I need to use the data machine, if you don't mind.
Let's ask these old sea dogs about the carvings on the unicorn's horn.
Carving? Sounds like scrimshaw, laddie. To while away the lonely hours at sea, a sailor would carve fanciful designs into a whale's tooth.
Aye, like as not he'd whittle a little something for his sweetheart.
The horn you describe sounds like a narwhal's horn. Narwhals are small whales with one long horn growing out of their foreheads. The old sea dogs called them unicorns of the sea.
Don't you believe this old sea dog, children? Who ever heard of a whale with a horn? He's pulling at your leg with an old sea yarn for sure. But sure, there were plenty of sailors carving whale ivory in the 1800s. Many of your Yankee sailors learned it from French ivory carvers when they were all in British prison together. The French were captured in the Napoleonic Wars, and many American sailors were our prisoners during your War of 1812. People would bring them ivory or marble to carve. Being stuck in jail, they had naught else to do.
Ready? Pick out the clues that show which ivory piece, if any, is being misrepresented in the auction. Good. Now pick out the ivory that isn't what it seems. If everything the cards say is true, then Mr. Williams is right. Pick him out. You've got it. The unicorn horn is the fake. McCavity was probably angry that ivory items were being sold at Snoopy's, since elephants are killed by poachers for their ivory. To embarrass both Snoopy's and Scotland Yard, he tried to slip a clever forgery into the auction. But he or she made one small mistake. The forger took an authentic narwhal's tusk and carved it to look like scrimshaw from over 100 years ago. The horn was called a unicorn horn, not because it was a horn from a unicorn, but because it was inscribed with pictures of the mythical beast. But something Mr. Sneed said showed us where McCavity slipped up. He or she put a modern name on the tusk. McCavity apparently didn't know that the name Cheryl wasn't ever used until the name Beryl became popular in the 1920s. A real piece of scrimshaw from the 1870s couldn't have that name on it.